Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming to the October 17th Committee of Adjustment meeting. So I'm just going to make a couple procedural announcements at the beginning. This meeting of the Committee of Adjustment is being called to hear applications under the Planning Act for minor variances and/or consents. This is a statutory public meeting. Anyone having an interest in any of these applications may make oral or written submissions for the committee's consideration, and I assure you this committee has received your written submissions. The committee will render a verbal decision this date, and the agent or applicant will then receive a copy of this committee's decision in writing via email within 10 days after the meeting. Each application will proceed in the same way. First, the city staff and planning coordinator will introduce the application and staff recommendation. The chair and myself will then advise my fellow committee members of any late written submissions, and I note that there's a few late submissions that we've already reviewed. And then the chair, myself, will confirm with the applicant or agent if they reviewed the staff report and whether they're in support of the staff recommendation. At that point, I will invite any parties in opposition to come forward and sit on my left and your right to provide any oral submissions you wish that the committee consider. I ask that parties providing oral submissions to avoid repeating comments already made by previous delegates. Then finally, my committee members may ask any questions of the parties in opposition. Then the agent or the applicant will get an opportunity to provide comments for the committee's consideration. And finally, the fellow committee members and myself may ask questions of the applicant or staff. Finally, this committee will then pass a motion to approve, reject, or defer the application. So at this point, the first order of business is to approve the minutes as circulated for the September 2023 Committee of Adjustment meeting. So if I could get a motion on the floor. Member McCall. So Member McCall moves to approve the minutes. Yeah, and then can I get a second motion? And then Member Hanna. So all in favor of approving the minutes as circulated? It passes unanimously. Thank you. And then at this point, I ask that any members of this committee that have pecuniary interests, any of the applicants, please disclose those interests. It does seem like there are. So finally, we will start with the first application. And I note this first application, we received several written submissions, and I assure you these written submissions have been considered by this committee and my fellow members. So if I could have the agent or applicant for A 2023-116, please come forward. That's the 267 Trainer Ave. And when staff's ready, can you please introduce this report?
Thank you, Chair. This is a minor variance application for 267 Trainer Avenue. It's a parking variance that's being requested, so to go from 1.75 parking spaces or 32 parking spaces to 1.38 parking spaces per dwelling unit or 25 parking spaces. And this is to facilitate an additional dwelling unit in the building. So the building currently has 17 units. It would go to 18 units. The additional dwelling unit has gone through site plan approval and has received conditional approval upon obtaining the minor variance. Staff reviewed the variance in light of the four tests of the Planning Act, finds that it meets all four and is recommending approval.
Thank you very much, staff. Can the agent or applicant please state his name for the record and if he is in support of the staff recommendation?
My name is Ken Beekendam, and I'm the agent for this application, and I support staff's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So at this point, if there's any parties here to provide oral submissions, I ask them to please come forward. And again, I reiterate for the public, we have reviewed your written submissions. There are, ma'am, just come to your right and my left. It'll be the first chair there. And then when you two of us, yeah, you're more than welcome both to come forward. Thank you. Just sit in those first two chairs. And then when you get settled in, can you just state your name for the record, please? Yep. Oh, one more time. Get the red light.
Okay. My name is Maribel Hagarin, and I'm a tenant of the 267 Trainer Avenue, and I'm spearheading the tenants.
My name is Megan Walker, and I work for the Social Development Center Eviction Prevention Program, and I am supporting the tenants.
Thank you. If you had comments on the planning merits of the application, this committee would love to receive them.
Hello, Committee of Adjustment. So I'm Maribel Hagarin, and I'm a tenant of 267 Trainer Avenue. I'm spearheading the group. We have gathered here today to ask for help from the city. There are 10 families' homes here in front of you asking you, the City of Kitchener, to protect us. We are threatened by our landlord's application. We are here on high alert defending our homes. We have been resisting the renovation for several months now, and we are still awaiting the date at the LTV. Given the history of our experiences with the landlord attempts to evict us, we oppose the approval of the permit. We are extremely concerned that this application will result in displacing us. We are in the middle of a housing crisis. The government is trying to build more affordable homes, right? But how about the number of affordable existing units that we are losing from this potential renovation? We need the city's help to keep our homes. We appeal to the City of Adjustment and the City Planning to fully examine the applications of our landlord. Please grant us your watchful eye and rightful decision, taking into account the lives of the people affected. Living in an old building and paying affordable rent does not make us less of a human. It does not give our landlord the right to kick us out of our homes so he can build more wealth. Out of 17 units, 12 units eviction notices were distributed to long-term tenants back in January. 2 tenants moved out, and shortly after, cosmetic renovations of the units were made, and the new tenants moved in, paying double. We witnessed the turnover, and it was very hard to watch. I would like to make an inquiry. What are the implications of this permit? By removing the parking spots, taking away our common amenities like the laundry room, etc., to a U unit, what is next? Do we need to vacate our units to allow renovations? Is the installation of the in-unit laundry mandatory or optional? Do we have the right to refuse if we prefer to do our laundry elsewhere? We are asking for transparency. Is this going to lead to eviction? Is this a form of intimidation or a way to cause distress to push us out? Will the parking spot be assigned to segregated according to tenure? Are the new tenants paying higher rents will have the privilege to own a spot, and the long-term tenants who are paying affordable rent will have to look for a parking spot elsewhere? I would like to go back to the original building permit application submitted by the landlord for the N13 eviction notice back in May. What happened to that application? We were confused with the addresses of 267 Trainer Avenue and 199 Aaron Street that got mixed up in the application. Aaron Street is the other building that is also facing renovation with the same owner, landlord Mike Beer. Did that application get approved? As an Econ Tenant Union leader of the local chapter, I am aware of what's going on with the community. I heard a lot of horror stories of tenants who are going through the same renovation, and the strategies and tactics used by landlords are not unique. They are all similar. I don't have a crystal ball, but I can almost tell what are the next move. The loophole in the system, that is why we need to defend our homes. We will have to enforce our rights as tenants, and that will be too late if we get evicted. So, prevention is better than cure, and we need your help, City of Kitchener. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your submissions. Did my fellow committee members have any questions of the opposition? Thank you. If there's any other members of the public who wish to provide comments in addition to the current speaker, I ask them to come forward at this point, and I don't think there are. At this point, open the floor of my members to ask any questions of the applicant, unless the applicant would like to provide some submissions.
I'll comment here. So the application that's before committee is in regards to to recognize an existing parking situation on the site. The current site is already deficient in its parking ratio for the number of units that are there. We worked closely with staff, with Dave especially, and also Tara, the planner, in regards to looking at possibly expanding the parking area to provide even more parking spaces. However, it was recommended to us by Dave and Tara that we just maintain the existing site as it is, given the fact that we're in a major transit area, and that the addition of one dwelling unit is not going to have a negative impact on the current parking arrangements that are there. So, I do hear the residents here, and I feel for your situation. However, I understand that they do have legal counsel, and then they are bringing their concerns and grievances to the Landlord-Tenant Board, which is the appropriate venue to discuss those matters. I'm here to represent the application that is before us. I'm happy to answer any other questions if there's any.
Thank you. Did my fellow members have any questions? Yeah, Member Hanna.
Just a quick question for the applicant, and then I have a couple of questions for staff too. I think you've already answered the question, but there are 25 spaces there now.
Yes.
So you're not removing any spaces?
No, we're maintaining the existing parking status that's there.
Correct. So effectively, you're asking the committee to approve, instead of 25 spaces for 17 units, it's 25 spaces for 18 units?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And just to clarify for my own benefit, you're not displacing any of the tenants with this particular application. You're converting a laundry or storage room. Can you help explain that?
Yeah, so we're taking what we feel is underutilized space, which is a common area and a storage room, to create an additional unit, and then in turn providing in-suite laundry into each of the existing units, which we feel is a net positive to everybody in the building.
Thank you. Just a quick question for staff. I noticed in the report that if the new zoning bylaw 2019 was in place today, where you're headed, this variance would not be required. Can you help to explain that?
Yes, so we are developing new parking standards for our MTSA areas, or Metro Transit Station areas. But in terms of the new bylaw, 2019-051, the parking requirement currently would be one parking space per dwelling unit.
Just to follow, and the status of the major transit area station zoning update, that's a handful. When are we looking at that?
So there are two phases to this work. This property is in the second phase of that work, so the timing is unknown at the moment, but the first phase, as it relates to our central neighborhoods in and around, King Street downtown, would be later this year.
Unless there's any other comments, I look forward to a motion. Sure, ma'am. Of course, and please say your name for the record again.
I'm Megan Walker, and I represent the residents at Traynor, and I work for the Social Development Center Eviction Prevention Program. I think that the focus on parking spots is actually a mistake here, because the developer, Mr. Beer, who is the owner of Traynor, has been doing this at other buildings throughout Waterloo Region. He's been taking away common amenities that people need to live in their units, and he's been using that as an opportunity to renovate the residents themselves. We don't need more parking. I agree, we need more dwellings, but this is a shady landlord tactic, and we see it throughout the region. Specifically, Mr. Beer did this at Aaron's recently, 199 Aaron's, and I think we're focusing on the wrong thing here. And I think that while we can say that we hear the residents, I've been working with them for a long time, and this is yet another way to get them out of their building. Right now, all of the residents are using the communal laundry because the in-suite laundry doesn't work, including the ones with in-suite laundry. This is not a solution.
Okay, thank you for your submission. Ma'am, is there any questions for the opposition? No. So I look forward to a motion on the floor at this point. Member Hanna?
Yeah, I'm going to move the staff recommendation. I have a few comments to make when it's on the floor.
Thank you, Member Hanna. Can I get a second for the it was a motion to approve, sorry, Member? Yeah. And then Member Santos, second. Okay, so motion's open, and I send it back to Member Hanna.
I'm just going to say that I have read fully all of the submissions that have been made by the residents that live in the building, and I just want to be very honest that I very much sympathize with your situation. The problem I'm dealing with, and the reason I'm going to support this application, is we have in front of us a variance that is just asking for parking. Has nothing to do with the issues that you're dealing with. So unfortunately, what you're dealing with is beyond our jurisdiction, and I want to wish you well with the landlord and tenant situation, but it's something that we can't control on this committee. And staff has made it very clear that we're heading to a situation where maybe 6 months or a year from now, this variance wouldn't even be required. And that's why staff are supporting it. So that's my comments.
Thank you, Member Hanna, and I'd like to reiterate for the public as well. I mean, this committee is more than aware. I am in fact a renter and a long-term renter, and I sympathize for my fellow renters, but it's well outside the jurisdiction. I live in a high-rise purpose-built rental, and I truly sympathize, but it's way outside the jurisdiction of this Committee of Adjustment. So, unless there's any further debate, I'll put a motion. All in favor of the motion on the floor? So it passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Underhill. Could I please have the applicant for A 2023-117, that's 72 Underhill Crescent, and can the agent or applicant please come forward and have staff introduce the application?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a minor variance application for 72 Underhill Crescent. It's a minor variance to permit the required parking space to be located 2.4 meters from the street or property line, instead of the minimum required 6 meters, and this is to facilitate the conversion of the attached garage into living space for an additional dwelling unit within the existing dwelling. Staff have reviewed the variance in light of the four tests of the Planning Act, finds that it meets all four, and is recommending approval.
Thank you, staff. Could I have the agent or applicant state his name for the record and whether he's in support of the staff recommendation?
Hello, I'm Ali Reza Naini, the representative of main applicant Nafisa Moqimi.
Thank you. And you're in support? Yeah. Yeah, thank you. If there's any parties here to provide oral submissions in opposition, I ask them to come forward. I don't believe there are. So did the applicant wish to provide any comments to the committee for its consideration?
No comments.
So I open the floor to questions of the applicant or staff. I don't know. I think it's pretty straightforward. So if I look forward to a motion then.
I'll make the motion to approve as presented.
Yeah, thank you. And can I get a second for Member Sadas? Member McCall, second. It's a good application, so I like it. It's good planning. So all in favor of the motion on the floor? It passes unanimously, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
I had to get my comments in. Could I please have the agent or applicant for A 2023-118, that's 35 Fifth Avenue, please come forward, and I ask that staff please introduce this application.
Thank you, Chair. This is a minor variance application for 35 Fifth Avenue. It's a minor variance for the lot width to facilitate the demolition of the existing detached dwelling, single detached dwelling, and the ability to construct a new single detached dwelling with 2 additional dwelling units attached, which is essentially a new triplex. Staff first considered this application in July. It was a different built form that was proposed. The applicant has worked with staff to come up with a different built form that could be supported. So the variance before you is a reduction of lot width from 13.1 meters to 12.2 meters. Staff have reviewed the variance in light of the 4 tests of the Planning Act, finds that it meets all 4, and is recommending approval.
Thank you very much, staff. Could the agent or applicant state his name for the record and if he's in support of the staff recommendation?
Yes, my name is Awais Hamid, and I'm in support of this application.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public here to provide comments? And I don't think there are, so I open the floor to questions of the applicant or of staff. No questions? Did the applicant wish to provide any submissions for further consideration?
No comments.
Thank you. I had a question for staff. I can't remember off the top of my head, on the last application, was the parking the same? Was it always stacked when it came in July?
No. So there was an additional variance asked for in July for an increased driveway width and garage width. Yes.
I was making sure I remembered it properly. Okay. So I look forward to debate. Remember, Hannah?
I'm going to move the staff recommendation, and I just want to commend staff and the applicant for working together. I love the redesign. It looks great. There's no concerns from this guy, so I move that the application be approved.
Can I get a second? Member McCall, second. Thank you. Oh, I think. So is there any debate beyond Member Hanna's comments? No? So all in favor of the motion on the floor, which is to approve? It passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can we please have the applicant for A 2023-119 come forward? That's 196 Forest Hill Drive. Can staff please introduce this application?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a minor variance application for 196 Forest Hill Drive. The application is to permit the required parking space to be located 3.5 meters from the front property line rather than the required 6 meters. This is to facilitate the conversion of the attached garage into living space for the existing single detached dwelling and not to create an ADU as noted in the staff report. So the notice is correct. It is to convert the attached garage for living space to the single detached dwelling. The analysis in the staff report is still relevant in terms of the forecast the Planning Act and how that parking space does meet those, location of it. So I just ask that the staff recommendation be amended to state that it's to facilitate the conversion of the attached garage into living space rather than to create the additional dwelling unit attached. So staff have reviewed the variance in light of the forecast the Planning Act, finds that it meets all four and is recommending approval.
Thank you very much, staff. Is the applicant or agent, can they state their name for the record and if they're in support of the new staff recommendation?
Good morning. My name is Jeff Bauman, and I am in approval of this application.
Thank you very much. Are there any members of the public here to provide comments? I don't believe there are. Did the applicant want to provide any comments for the committee's consideration?
I think the staff has mostly covered it, but the area will be used as a craft room for the residents. It feels like the driveway has ample parking spot because the property line is in significantly from the sidewalk, so it feels like all the needs are being met here.
Thank you. So did my fellow committee members have any questions? No? And I look forward to a motion then. Member McCall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a little confused on this. This is still going to be a single-family dwelling. So you're just very simply, despite what the staff report says, very simply just converting the garage from space for the car to space for people. Okay, and that's what I figured out. So yes, Mr. Chair, I will move that this be approved as, not as in the staff report, but as the verbal amendments that came through today.
Madam Chair, did you get that? Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Can I get a second for Member McCall's? Thank you, Member Santos. Second. If there's any debate, I think today the staff's changes made it even better application. So all in favor of the motion on the floor? It passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Can I please have the applicant for A 2023-121 please come forward? That's 15 Cedar Street North, the agent or applicant. And then could I please have staff introduce this application?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a minor variance application for 15 Cedar Street North. It is a minor variance for a few reductions in regulations. Lot width from 15 to 12.4, front yard from 1.5 to 1.1, interior side yard reduction from 7.5 to 1.5 because it does abut a residentially zoned property. And the last variance is to permit 0 parking spaces instead of the minimum required 10 to facilitate the development of the property with a multiple dwelling containing 10 residential dwelling units. This application recently went to council to remove the holding provisions to allow this development to happen. Staff have reviewed the proposal in great detail with the applicant, worked with them to modify, reduce the variances, and come up with the best built form. So accordingly, staff have reviewed the variances in light of the forecast the Planning Act and is recommending approval of all of those.
Thank you so much, staff. Could the agent or applicant state his name for the record, and if he's in support of the staff recommendation?
Stephen Litt here to support.
Thank you very much. Are there any members of the public here to provide comments? And I don't think there are. So did the applicant want to provide any submissions for the committee's consideration?
No, I think this is a project that we hear about all the time in other projects, that we need 3-bedroom suites, larger suites, ground form, urban location, no parking. If you envision this as sort of a strip of land that had a single house on it years ago, it's sort of remnant lands of a adjacent project, a 72-unit apartment building we built. 10 units, all 3 floors, all suitable for families, which I think is great. Urban location, no parking. We need more of this sort of thing. So,
Thank you very much. Did my fellow committee members want to ask questions of the applicant or staff? Member Hannon.
Real quick, the parking arrangement, you were mentioning the size of the units were 3 bedrooms, some of them. Can you give me a breakdown of the units, and how do you intend to control parking? Is it through the lease agreement, or how do you intend to do that?
yeah, it's not known at this point whether these would be rental or condo tenure, but there's no parking provided in either way. We view this as a way to use public transit. So when parking is not provided, this is going to attract a family that doesn't have a car. By not having a car, it simply makes it more affordable. It's an option of a built form of housing that doesn't exist, a 3-bedroom, newly constructed, townhome in downtown Kitchener. So it's a first. We hope there's a lot more of them. I can give you an analogy. So right next door, we built 0.7 spots per unit. We're only using 0.45. The building's full. And that was, we leased that building, 20% of it turns over every year. We leased that building roughly a year and a half ago. So there's less and less parking. Ridership on the LRT has been great. So this is another opportunity for another, unique built form that we hope others get inspired by. So.
And I'm not trying to give you a hard time, but the unit number 10 kind of drew me to the fact that the province has changed its legislation recently to say if you got 10 or less, you don't have to go through site plan approval. Was that done by design?
Yeah, so full disclosure, we contemplated building a larger form here, 30-unit, micro-unit type project. Yeah, I mean, we saw this as an opportunity to align various programs, right? That's what we do as developers, right? We balance the risk of finance, market, construction costs, politics. We saw it as an opportunity to go 10 units. So I think it's an example of actually a policy that made the change in the right direction. So. Yeah, it's a direct result of that legislative change for sure.
Do you mind, Mr. Chairman, if I just follow up with staff then? This would be a good example maybe for my benefit and also the committee. The things that you would normally deal with through site plan approval, has the city changed anything to require through the permit process as an example that they'd be looked at? Because I noticed that engineering was asking for a swale to be maintained, and I'm not sure how that's going to happen.
Yes, so to answer your question through your chair, some of the processes that we would have seen through the site plan approval process have been, referred to the building permit process now. So those things are looked at through the building permit process for new construction. That's the process. We have to look at them now to make sure that they meet city standards and requirements and building code. A lot of the grading drainage is also a building code item as well. So it makes sense to be able to look at those through the building permit process.
And just back to the major transit area station update, this is one of those locations where I think you're heading to a 0 parking requirement. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So at the moment, draft zoning that we do have out is showing and indicating 0 parking for new residential dwelling units.
Thank you. So I welcome a motion on the floor so we can enter debate. Member McCall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to my colleagues here on the question about the 10 units. But actually, a question for the applicant. A couple of years ago, the major thrust seemed to be towards small units, single bedroom or even bachelor type units. You have made the comment, and I'm in support of it somewhat, that there's a trend changing towards not single units, but or single person units, but 3-bedroom family units. I'm just wondering, Is that just a market condition, or has there been some research done into the changing dynamics of the rental business in general, and that more multi-bedroom units are being required as opposed to just the one-bedroom unit?
It's a great question. So I would say in our typical high-rise rental stuff that I come stand there and sit here all the time, we have to build smaller suites just to simply get the cost of housing down. It's inevitable. It's happening in the condo market as well. But we try and really find that balance of livability and space. You know, throughout Ontario, we're hearing about 3 units, 4 units as of right on any lot, which we think is good. I really hope that the wood frame builder market, really grasps that as sort of gentle density. There's a number of challenges with it, obviously, but in wood frame, you can deliver your construction costs, I'm going to say, are roughly 20% less. You don't have the economies of scale, however, for amenities and such, but in theory, you should be able to deliver this on a square foot basis for less than an adjacent concrete building. So it's not a simple answer. I'm sort of providing some facts that you can maybe connect the dots on, but yeah, I think that, as we heard at council last night, so Kitchener adopted a 4 units as of right, which I think is great. I'm hoping that there's additional framework for the wood frame community to embrace that and perhaps revise plans of subdivision to build more of that in suburban locations. We need housing everywhere, right? And it's an opportunity to deliver lower housing, multi-unit cost. That's not a high-rise. That's looks more like a traditional subdivision per se. So it's, I would say, better embraced by the current marketplace of desiring a backyard and more green space and suburban locations. So yeah.
Thank you. And if there's any further questions, could I get a motion on the floor? Yeah, Member Santos?
I'll make the motion to support this application as presented.
Thank you. Can I get a second? Member McCall seconds. Thank you. I'll put in my 2 cents. This has been a blighted property the entire 9 years I've lived in the area, so I'm happy to see something happening. So, Member Santos?
Yeah, I'd like to echo that as well. I'm excited about this application. Oftentimes we really want more units, and often it's just smaller ones. I'm excited about this having 3-bedroom units. I think it's really a missing middle. Families are looking for a bigger space, and having no parking will hopefully make this more affordable, and there's tons of parking options even across the street from this property. So it's one of the better applications I've seen since being on this committee, so I'm excited to approve this. Way to go.
Yeah, Member Hannon?
Yeah, I'm just going to add my 2 cents too. Sort of, give you a hard time, but I really like this application too, and I think it's important to note that you're stuck with the size of the lot you have, so that variance makes sense. The fact that there's no parking, that's where we're headed for this particular location. There's lots of things to do, lots of parking in the area, so good luck with your project.
Thank you.
All in favor? Pass unanimously. Thank you. Can we please have the applicant for A 2023-122 come forward? That's 186 Lyndhurst Drive. And staff, please introduce this application.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a minor variance application for 186 Lyndhurst Drive. There's a number of minor variances to facilitate the construction of an additional dwelling unit detached in the rear yard of the existing property. So there are 3 variances listed to permit an unobstructed walkway that is 1.06 rather than 1.1, to permit the principal dwelling to be 1.06 meters from the side lot line rather than the 1.2. This is to reflect an existing condition in that side yard. The existing walkway is proposed to be utilized in that location. And then the 3rd variance is to permit the driveway to be 1.06 meters from the side lot line, whereas where there's no attached garage, where there's an attached garage, the driveway has to be 1.2 meters from the side lot line. There are going to be some modifications required to the driveway, so that the driveway, as it extends all the way to the front property line, will have to be distinguishable. So staff are recommending a condition be imposed to require that to happen within a year's time frame. Staff also note that engineering is requiring the 0.5-meter swale in the side yard. This will be reviewed and worked out through the building permit process. They will, may be some consideration, given this is an existing walkway condition and no alterations or changes are happening in that location, that they can work through with building to figure that one out. But staff have reviewed the variances in light of the 4 tests of the Planning Act, and given that they meet the 4 tests in the Planning Act, staff is recommending approval.
Thank you so much. Can the agent or applicant please state her name for the record and if she's in support of the staff recommendation?
Kathy Burns, and I support.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public here that wish to provide oral submissions? I don't think there are. Did the applicant wish to provide any comments for this committee's consideration?
Yes, I just wanted to read off just a comment that my husband would like to provide here. He's concerned with this whole process. We are in compliance with the majority of the stuff except for the 4 centimeters on the side of the house. He's saying through this whole process, there's been more than enough delays when we're trying to promote affordable housing. Again, the land size itself meets all criteria for an additional dwelling in the backyard. This is a 3-generation property. We're not talking about renting out the dwelling in the backyard at all. That would be for housing for my husband and myself. We've talked to our neighbors. They have no issues at all with what we're doing and actually support what we're doing with having the 3 generations. We have found that this whole process with the city itself has been very slow and frustrating. This has been going on since June 17th, and we're really hoping that with our example, it will help maybe look at the way processes are looking at in the future to help additional families who are going to be looking at multi-generation dwellings in the backyard. He's saying we hope that you guys also do support our project. And if our family isn't a poster child for the additional family unit, we're not too sure what type of family would actually be then. So that's our 2 cents on this.
No, thank you, and your comments are definitely received. If any of my committee members want to ask questions, applicant, member Hanna?
Yeah, I just, how far advanced are your plans? Have you had an engineer look at how you're going to service this at all, or?
At this point, we haven't hired an engineer, just because we've been roadblocked right from the beginning, even just on the driveway part. So every time we try to go back to the city, on recommendations to expand the driveway, every time we've tried to, well, can we paint? No, you can't paint. Can we do this? No, put in a high-rise curb. It's just been like one thing after another with the city that has been, we were hoping to build this fall and, or at least start the process, and we're still here back at square one.
Thank you. So unless there's any further questions, I open the floor. Yeah, Hannah? Member Hannah?
Yeah, I have a quick follow-up question for staff. My understanding with these ADUs is they have to be independently serviced. Is that correct?
The city only allows 1 set of service connections per lot, so the servicing would have to come through the main dwelling. So once they hire an engineer, they'll be able to work that out, but we only allow 1 service connection per dwelling lot.
Sorry, so it is, I'm just going to make sure for future reference for myself, then it can be through the existing sanitary water, et cetera, system through the house?
Yes, it can, yes.
Okay.
And if I can make an additional comment, we've had like our electrician and a plumber already come in that are willing to do the project and fully aware that it would be connected to the main dwelling.
Thank you. Given that, I look forward to a motion. Member McCall?
Not quite yet a motion, Mr. Chair.
No problem.
First off, I think these variances are numerically very minor. I'm glad to see that the multi-generational aspect of the proposed development, and I am in support of this application. It's unfortunate, I guess, for the applicant it's taken a little bit of time, but there are always processes to follow, and that's why we're here to do this. So I move that this be approved as per the staff report.
Can I get a second for that motion? Member Hannah seconds, so unless there's any debate, all in favor of Member McCall's motion? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Can we please have the agent or applicant for A 2023-123 please come forward? That's 230 Frederick Street, and can staff please introduce this application?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a minor variance application for 230 Frederick Street. A couple minor variances before the committee this morning. One to permit a front yard setback of 1.9 meters instead of the minimum required 3 meters. An interior side yard setback for a building greater than 10.5 meters of 1.2 meters instead of the minimum required 3 meters. And to permit a minimum landscaped area of 9.5% instead of the minimum 10%. There's also a parking variance so that the existing parking lot can be recognized in its location, so to recognize it at 0 meters instead of the minimum required 1.5 meters. And this is to facilitate the construction of an addition onto the existing single detached dwelling and permit it to be converted to a multiple dwelling having 4 dwelling units. Staff just note in the body of the report that the analysis for the interior side yard setback was stated at 1.5 meters rather than the 1.2 meters, so the setback that they are requesting is 1.2 and not 1.5 as in the analysis section of meeting the general intent of the zoning bylaw. So staff have reviewed the variance of 1.2 meters and the other variances. Note that they do meet the 4 tests in the Planning Act and is recommending approval.
Thank you so much. Can the agent or applicant please state his name for the record and if he's in support of the staff recommendation?
Hi, Matthew Muller from John McDonald Architects Office. We're the agent for the applicant, and we are in support.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to provide comments? And I don't believe there are, so if the agent wished to provide comments for the committee's consideration, we're more than happy to accept them.
No, I think things are pretty straightforward. I would just say that most of them, with the exception of the 1.2 meter side yard, are to reconcile the existing condition.
No, thank you for that. And so I open the floor to any questions of the applicant or staff. If not, motion. It's up to you. Member Hanna?
I'm going to make a motion and a couple of comments. I think this is a great application, and thanks very much for retaining the existing building. Personally, I think it should be under Part 4 of the Heritage Act, but that's just my own opinion. But we don't see many of this where you're actually keeping something and adding to it. I think it's going to be a very functional site, and I fully support.
Can I get a second for that motion? Member Santos seconds. Thank you. Any comments or debate? No? So all in favor? Thank you. Member Hanna for your comments. All in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I please have the applicant for B 2023-036? That's the Duke Street application for severance. And can I please have staff introduce this application?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a consent application for 45 Duke Street East. It is consent to create an easement, as shown in Part 1 on Reference Plan 58R 21469. The easement would be to allow the maintenance of the property adjacent, known as 48 Ontario Street North, which is a designated heritage property. Site plan approval has been granted for the adjacent property on Duke Street, and as a condition of that, there is an easement that's required to be able to provide maintenance of the property at 48 Ontario Street. So staff have reviewed the application for consent in light of all city, regional, provincial policies, and is recommending approval as it meets all of those, subject to some conditions.
Thank you, staff. Could the agent please state his name for the record and if he's in support of the staff recommendation?
Dave Austin with MHBC Planning, and we're here in support.
Thank you. Were there any members of the public we hear that wish to provide comments? And I don't think there are. So if the agent wished to provide some comments for the committee's consideration, we'd be more than happy to have them.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. Generally, the staff review is correct. I just would note that the site plan approval is for 45 Duke Street. That provided for development of the lands. The easement, maintenance easement for the adjacent lands was a recommendation that was provided through the heritage impact assessment and that process. So that's how this has all evolved. There has been discussion between the two landowners, and an agreement is generally in place with this easement being the document to finalize that arrangement. So we're looking for support of the committee so that the site plan approval can get finalized and we can move to final approval and start to get the project going.
Thank you so much. Did any of my fellow members have questions? Member Santos, looks like you got one.
No, I'll make a motion to approve as presented. Although I do miss Jack Berger quite a bit, though, but we got to move forward. So I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Member Santos. Can I get a second for the motion? Member McCall, second. Are there any debate? Nope. So all in favor of Member Santos' motion to approve as recommended? Passes unanimously, so thank you. Could I please have the applicant for B 2023-037 please come forward? That's the Brown Street application, and could I have staff introduce this application?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a consent application for 38 Bond Street. It's consent to sever a parcel of land for a proposed new duplex dwelling. The lands to be retained are currently being constructed with a two-story duplex dwelling at present, so they would like to sever the vacant half of this lot and put a new duplex dwelling on this half. So staff have reviewed the application in light of provincial, regional, and city policies and finds that it meets all of those and is recommending approval subject to a number of conditions.
Thank you, staff. Could the agent applicant state his name for the record and if he's in support of the staff recommendation?
Good morning. My name is Boban Jokanovic, and I am in support of this application.
Thank you. Or is there any members of the public who wish to provide comments? I don't think there are. Did the applicant wish to provide some further comments for this committee's consideration?
I don't have any comments, but I do have a question. I have taken part in a lot of similar applications, and I've never seen a condition such as this one, number 12, about obtaining archaeological assessment. And I'm just wondering if that's got something to do because the property is very close to the cemetery, or whatever the reason for that condition is.
So if I'll direct that question to staff, if you could, because I'm a little out of my comfort zone on that one.
Yes, through you, Chair. This is a condition that was requested by the Region of Waterloo and staff, and in their comments, they do note that the property is very directly adjacent to a cemetery, and there could be some possibility of remains or other artifacts that could be dug up during any site alteration, digging, excavating of the the separate lands. I understand the region did acknowledge that there has been some work taking place on the other half of the property, but because there's still that potential there, they're requesting this condition.
Thank you very much. Did any of my fellow members have any questions? Member Hanna?
Just a quick question for the applicant. Initially, I'm a little sympathetic for you regarding the archaeological, and I'll get to that in a second, but you're noting that the application is for duplexes. I went to see the site, and there are 3 hydrometers on the building that's under construction. Is your intent to build 3 units here?
I am not in control of what my client does, but I think what they see is where we're leading to, where there's going to be potentially that down the road there's going to be a potentially allowed 3rd unit. So they want to have a separate meter just in case that happens. That's much easier to separate the services at this point than it is down the road. but it's not to say that they're going to do it right away because they know that parking is usually an issue and that there is not a way that they can obtain third unit right now with the lot size that they're going to have left after the severance. So.
I will be following up with staff about that in a second. When I was by the site as well, my view of the site, you have pretty much excavated the entire property. Would that be correct? There seemed to be a lot of site alteration that has taken place entirely on the property.
I think what the homeowner did or their contractor, I think they stored a lot of dirt from the previous excavation on the vacant side. So they're going to reuse some for backfill, or if they haven't already, I'm not sure, but they're going to have to ship that off. I'm just not sure why that did not happen already, though.
Yeah, what I'm trying to do for you and on your behalf is I'm trying to get to that archaeological condition. I've dealt with those in the past, my past life as a planner, and they're can be rather costly for you, and I'm trying to avoid it for you, but have you in fact scraped the entire site? It looked like you had.
I'm not 100% sure. I would have to find out from my client, to be honest with you. I'm representing them on this, on the application side, but I'm not familiar with what's going on with the construction of existing, to be honest with you.
Thank you. Just to follow up for staff, looking at the plans, the site plan, that would not comply to allow 3 units, the parking arrangement, correct?
Correct. For 3 dwelling units, 2 of the 3 parking spaces would have to be located 6 meters from the front lot line. In this arrangement, there would only be 1 in an attached garage. So there would be a variance that would be required for the parking under 85-1. There would also be a variance required for lot width. For 2 additional dwelling units, the requirement is 13.1 meters, and this property would be short on that at 10 point something meters, I believe, before you today. So under zoning bylaw 85-1, there would be 2 minor variances at least required for 2 additional dwelling units attached.
And I believe under the current and proposed bylaw, the maximum driveway width would be 5.2.
So currently under 85-1, it is 5.2, and under the new zoning bylaw, it would be 40% of the lot width, given that this is in the central neighborhoods.
Okay, when this is on the floor, I have some comments.
Thank you, Member Hanna. Are there any further questions of staff? Yeah, Member McCall.
Just to follow up on what the applicant has brought forward and underscored by my colleague, this archaeological study, the reason it's, correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason this is in this report is that the region has asked for this because of the adjacency to a pre-existing cemetery. That's what I'm hearing, so the question for staff.
Sorry, just pulling up their comments now.
Please take your time.
While you're doing so, if I can pile on with another question related to that, if that's okay, Mr. Chair. It's just relating to the property that we're just right next door at brand new build. When you had a permit for that, was an archaeological study necessary, or it wasn't because that was just a permit through the city?
That was just a permit through the city, so it did not have to, there was no regional approval required for the building permit, so it was issued as per applicable law and zoning. So the staff comment, or sorry, the regional comments on this consent are that the potential for recovery of archaeological resources due to the proximity to a cemetery, so within 50 meters. There's a 50-meter buffer. Regional staff note that a new dwelling is already under construction on the retained lands, and the lands have been disturbed through demolition. The applicant is advised if archaeological resources are discovered through future development or site alteration, the applicant will need to immediately cease alteration development and contact the Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism. So they go on to say, but basically their summary is as per regional official plan policy, 3G9, the owner applicant is required to have a licensed archaeologist complete an archaeological assessment for the separate lands. And so what they're asking for with this condition is in accordance with the regional official plan and the fact that the property is within 50 meters. And we have a consent application before us, but they do have the authority to require this.
We'll go into debate. I had some comments, but they're needed for debate, not question. Member McCall.
I'm still kind of confused. So if the only reason the region was triggered on this is because it's a consent application as opposed to just a building permit. If it was just an already severed lot and met all the requirements, they could get a building permit without any necessity for an archaeological study.
That is correct.
From what I understand from my colleague, that, and I've seen this before, archaeological studies can be expensive, very expensive. And when I have not driven by the property, but I see in the photographs here in the report, in the remote possibility that there was any archaeological concerns, I think they're well underground at this point. Piled on top with excavated dirt. I'm not really in favor of the region's request to have a licensed archaeological study done on this. It's a little late in the day, and we keep getting more and more of these unusual requests from third-party agencies. I know the region is not a third-party agency, but I'm generally in support of this application. Parkland is covered, the fees are covered, and except for my somewhat uncomfortable about the archaeological assessment, I'm in support of the application.
Can we get a motion to get to debate? I can't make the motion, guys.
I'll make the motion, but is this appropriate now to remove the...
It is appropriate if someone seconds it, yeah.
I'll make that motion to remove the archaeological requirement in this application.
And then can I get a member call second? Thank you. So I'll start debate. These are the kinds of policies that make housing more and more expensive. And respectfully, the region did approve the City of Kitchener's official plan years ago when the current one was in force. So if they wanted archaeological on every single severance near a cemetery, well, then the region could have forced the city to put that in the city's official plan as well. So that's my position. And unless anyone else had 2 more cents, Member Hanna?
Yeah, I'm going to support the removal of the condition as well. Having seen the site, I don't think the region has gone out to have a look. And if they were to uncover, say, a burial site or something that was there from many, many years ago, I mean, the construction would stop immediately. And it probably has saved you tens of thousands of dollars. But I do want to caution the applicant that I do not like the underhandedness of building 3 units and saying it's 2. And I'm just putting it on note for staff that somewhere through the building permit process, somebody's got to look at these things, because we're going to get 2 lots now with 3 units on it, and there's going to be more variances. Or there should be more variances, and 2 units on both lots would make sense to me. 3, you're going to have a front yard parking area. It's not going to look pretty. The rest of this neighborhood is quite attractive. It doesn't have this look. So I will support the application, but I'm just cautioning the applicant to be careful.
Thank you. So unless 2 more cents, all in favor of the amended application? Sorry? Oh, sir, you're...
I just wanted to mention, I think I agree with Mr. Hanna, but I think that there should be probably an internal cooperation between the building department and Enova, I guess, former KW Hydro, because they are the ones who do the electric layout, they approve it, they should be the ones allowing them to say, okay, you're not allowed to get more than 3 meters, this is proposed duplex. Right now, they're not doing that, so I think based on whatever the client, account holder, whatever they request is usually what they get. So that's neither you or myself can control it. I can tell my client, but I can tell them, but they don't have to listen, is what I'm trying to say. But I do agree with you.
Thank you very much. All in favor of the motion on the floor? So it passes unanimously. Thank you. And then, Madam Clerk, we got the Member Santos amendment to the recognition, yep? So thank you, it's approved.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your understanding.
Could we please have the applicant for B 2023-038, that's 265 Cotton Grass, please come forward, and can staff introduce its application?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is an application for consent for 265 Cotton Grass Street. The application is really to sever the residential portion of the lands from the commercial portion of the property. The severed lands are proposed for a 28 dwelling unit stacked townhome development, and the retained lot would remain commercial. Staff have reviewed the application in light of the provincial, regional, city policies, finds that it meets all of those, and is recommending approval.
Thank you. Can the agent or applicant state his name for the record and if he's in support of the staff recommendation?
Good morning. My name is Alex Vandersloos. I'm a project manager with Schlegel Urban Developments, and I'm here in support.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to provide comment? And I don't think there are. So did the applicant wish to provide some submissions to the committee for its consideration?
Yes, thank you. I'll be brief. First thing I just want to clarify is that the application, our original site plan application was for 28 units. Through some really productive work with staff, actually the project was changed to be 32 units. We were able to remove what became a redundant driveway connection and fill that in with more housing and some landscaped amenity space, which was a great improvement. These are, we're actually under construction right now. We've been granted a conditional building permit from the city, which has been great to get going. The motivation for the severance is primarily to get this parcel to a financeable state separate from the commercial lands. This project's being financed through a CMHC program, and so we're not working with our typical lender. And so this will allow us to register that mortgage related to the CMHC financing. And the intention was always to have the commercial aggregated through, there's an existing vacant land condominium. The retained lands are going to be aggregated into that vacant land condo, and the residential portion of the site has been serviced separately. There will be free and clear passage between all of these. It's going to function as a seamless site. So again, yeah, primarily dealing with a bit of a financing technicality here, so thank you.
Thank you for your submissions. Did any of my fellow members have questions of staff for the applicant? No? So if not, motion on the floor?
Yep. I'll make a motion to approve the staff recommendation. This is a good application.
Thank you. Can I second? Member McCall, second. Thank you. Yeah, good application. So all in favor of the motion on the floor? It passes unanimously. Thank you. At this point, can I please have the applicant for A 2023-124, as well as it's all in one, B 2023-039 and 040. That's the 75 Otterbein Road. And can staff introduce, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, we have one minor variance and two consent applications. So they're to facilitate the development at 75 Otterbein Drive. The consent application would sever a residential parcel and create an easement for access on that parcel. And then the second consent application would be to, sorry, I've got them reversed. The first consent application would be to create an easement on the retained lands, and then the severed parcel would be created through the second consent application, with another easement for access being created through this application as well. The minor variance is to reduce the required rear yard from 7.5 meters to 6 meters, and this is just the orientation of the buildings on the lot as a result of the severance. So staff have reviewed this minor variance in light of the four tests of the Planning Act, finds that it meets all four. Staff have also reviewed the two consent applications, creating the new lot and the easements, finds that it meets provincial, regional, and city policies, and is recommending approval subject to conditions. Staff note that there was regional correspondence received after the staff report preparation. So with respect to consent application B 2023-040, The region has advised that conditions 6 and 7, so 6 requiring the valid Section 59 notice, and number 7 requiring the salt management plan, can be deferred to the site plan application stage where it's more appropriately to review these two conditions. So that's the amendment before you with respect to this application. That's the only one, unless the applicant has any others. But again, staff is recommending approval of the applications.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, were you able to get that? Thank you. And then can the agent or applicant please state his name for the record and if he's in support of the new staff recommendation?
Dave Aston, MHBC Planning. We're in support of the minor variance recommendations, and we are in support of the, I guess, amended conditions associated with the consent application to remove conditions 6 and 7 from the region. And overall, I would say we're in support of the recommendation for approval, but there are 2 other conditions that I would like to speak to relative to the application. And the application itself to create the 2 lots is really, in essence, one, to create phasing for the development and financing for the development so that the apartment building lot or the retained lands could be developed in a different phase than the stacked townhomes. Just by nature of the proposal, that is likely what will happen, given the market conditions and just the status of development within the area. I can advise that we have received site plan approval in principle with the city, so what's shown and attached to the report as the site plan has approval in principle, and we're working with city staff and our consulting team to address the conditions of approval. So that would be my first comment, is to have a condition requiring site plan approval on a consent application, whereby site plan approval is a requirement for any development to occur on the lands as a whole or in part, I think just creates this odd chicken and egg or circular approach on the site. And I think that that is an unnecessary condition for this consent application to move forward. If the lots are created or the parts are created, the site plan approval would still be in effect as an approval in principle. In fact, in discussions with staff, we would likely work with them to break that approval in principle into 2 site plans or to 2 phases. So I don't think that that's a necessary condition as part of the consent application, and would ask the committee to not impose that as a condition to a consent, because it's already an obligation under the Planning Act to be fulfilled. The second is the regional condition associated to completion of the road, traffic, and stationary noise study. Again, I understand the perspective here that it's a consent application and it's, the region's first chance or opportunity to request conditions. But what the consent application is doing is just creating 2 blocks. There's a site plan approval for each of the blocks, and then potentially future plan a condo. So, well, again, I understand that this is the approach for the region. To complete a road traffic and stationary noise study at this point, I think is somewhat premature for the consent to create the blocks, because we still need to work through the site plan approval and get the building permit to know what the final construction is going to be. So what I would ask is, if the committee is looking to follow what the, I think, intent of the region is that condition 8 just be that the owner enter an agreement with the city to complete those studies, and that can be put on title of the lands, which would then require that study to be completed. And that could occur prior to building permit or something to that effect. But again, I think in context of what's being proposed, consent applications to create 2 blocks subject to site plan control, I would just ask that somehow that be deferred to a later stage.
Thank you. I'll have a couple questions for the applicants, but just to follow procedure, are there any members of the public here to wish to provide comment? I don't think there are, so I'll take the first stab at this. Your submissions are received well. I can understand the frustrations, but could you just explain a little bit, like, more succinctly, like, what line items, like number 3 of C, which ones do you want this committee to amend?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, of consent applications, C9, I would ask that this committee remove.
So, and that's what you're asking us to remove, is C9?
C9, and then C8, I'm asking the committee to consider inserting the words that the owner enter into an agreement with the city to complete a road traffic and stationary noise study, so that that condition can be fulfilled by way of an agreement through the process versus completing those studies at this point where there's not even a final understanding of what the buildings are.
Okay, so C8 to make it?
Yes.
And then C9?
Yes.
Okay. Did my fellow members have any further questions beyond mine? Yep, Member Santos got his hand up first.
Thank you. Just from my understanding, I appreciate why you want those conditions removed, but just from my understanding, reading the package and even driving by the property there too, is just there's no understanding what the final construction is going to be, but it seems like it's well underway. Is that just giving you options down the line? Just want to, if you can help me to help you, I'm just not sure why. I understand it makes things easier, but why?
Through Mr. Chair, why? So the process of conditions and clearing of conditions and then site plan approval, so all of those are time and process. And sometimes we find ourselves in scenarios where there's a bit of duplication and overlap of process that creates some process confusion or process lag, just because it does. So by not requiring the site plan approval on the consent application, it would allow our client to move forward and create the two parts separately, and then we can work with the city on finalizing the site plan approvals, and then that way the phasing can occur. The way the condition is now, we would have to finish the site plan approval, then come back and ask for release of the conditions. So it's just creating an extra step in the process.
Member Hanna? Or sorry, I think staff, that's okay, Member Hanna? I'd love to hear a comment.
Yeah, I'd like to respond to, and the reasons why condition number 9 is included in the application. So there is a current site plan approval on these lands. The reason for the condition is that that site plan approval needs to be modified. So it no longer pertains to the entirety of the property. It would only pertain to the separate lands. So the condition is that the owner enter into an agreement for that to happen, not that that has to happen prior to deed endorsement. And should that site plan application be modified prior to deed endorsement, then condition number 9 is not applicable. So that's the second part of that condition number 9. Should a site plan application be approved in accordance with the condition above, prior to deed endorsement, the above noted condition shall not be required to be registered on title. So it's just a condition requiring the site plan application to be modified, not to require a new site plan approval. I agree with the applicant, there will be site plan approval required for the retained lands at such time as they come forward with their proposal.
Okay, that answers many of my questions, so thank you for that. Member Hanna, did you still want to go?
Yeah, I was going to ask staff about condition 8 as an example. Isn't that part of AIP to begin with? Isn't it a condition of AIP?
We cannot require noise studies as part of site plan approval. The region cannot as well. So noise is not something that's dealt with at site plan approval. They're dealing with it at the consent stage.
That's always bothered me because other municipalities you can. I sympathize with the applicant, but I think condition 9 is covered by that out clause at the end. So I'm not in support of removing that, because I understand technically you got to go back and get a new SPA. I get that. I like what the applicant's doing for condition number 8, though, because they don't really know what's going to happen with both buildings. And I think the way that he has worded it makes sense to me. So I'm going to support the modification to 8, but I would like to keep 9 in.
Any other questions? If not, Member McCall? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in complete agreement with what my colleague has said. I think, and staff has said this too, I think condition number 9 should remain, and number 8 is not really all, I don't think is really all that necessary. So that's my comment. I would support this application as amended, with 6 and 7 also being handled through site plan as opposed to through this committee.
Member Hanna?
Just a question for staff. Do you have the rewording for condition number 8? You have it? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Oh, we don't have a motion, just to be clear. Sorry, Member Hanna.
Just to keep things going, I'm going to move all of the applications, the minor variance, unchanged, consent application B 2023-039 unchanged, and consent application B 2023-040 to remove conditions 6 and 7 and modify condition number 8.
And then can we get a second for the amended motion on the floor? Member Santos, second, thank you. So under debate, so just for my clarity, what have we done to number 8? Can you just say it one more time, Member Hanna?
The way I've got it is the applicant's saying we need to enter into an agreement with either the region or the city to say we will do a noise study, and the outcome of that study will be implemented. But they're just entering into the agreement to be able to do the study, require the study.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, so anyone else had any dumb questions like me? If not, all in favor of the amended motion on the floor? Or just the motion on the floor? And then it passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that, at this point, I believe we're done. Double check. Can we get a motion to amend, please? Or adjourn, sorry.
I will make the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Member Hanna. Can we get a second? Member Call, and all in favor of adjourn the meeting? The meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.